What's the most appalling behavior you've seen by a young child's parent? 1. I was in Safeway and there was this kid all over the place. Fruit was being dropped by him, kicking other customers, and his mom was just by the grocery cart talking on her phone. I rolled my eyes and started picking out apples for an apple pie my grandma was making. All of a sudden I looked over and this kid had bitten a dude's leg. He was bleeding and the skin was clearly broken. I didn't leave the aisle just to see what was going to go down. And the man yelled, "Why the hell would you do that?" The mother came over and said, "Excuse me, don't you yell at my son like that. Ma'am, get your son checked as soon as you can. I'm HIV positive." Everyone in the store went silent. The man who got bitten waddled over to the cash register with a big grin on his face. As soon as he left the store, the mom started sobbing. I don't know if he does have HIV or not, but it was super savage. 2. There was a little girl, 8 years old, and her dad called her a slut. Why? Because she was wearing pajamas pants, and when he told her to go put on something more appropriate to eat breakfast in her own home, she just put on a slip over the pajama pants. 3. I was in an IEP meeting with other teachers, administrators, a student's parents, their lawyer, and the district's lawyer. An IEP meeting is where all of the adults involved with the education of a child with special needs get together to discuss the best way to teach that child. IEP stands for Individualized Education Plan. At the end of the meeting, accommodations for the student are written down and they become legally binding. Parents typically don't bring their own lawyer to these meetings. These parents did, which is why the district sent a lawyer. 2. The parents actually sued 2 previous schools for failing to meet the needs of their special needs child. But those schools, like the one where I worked, were private schools, which lacked the proper resources for a student with special needs as severe as hers. Still, the parents insisted that their child was going to get a private school education. They were blind to the reality that everyone else saw their child would likely go straight from living with them into a group home for life. They needed to worry about life skills for their child, like meal prepping and shopping, not algebra and literature. Among the accommodations the parents tried to get put in the IEP was that their daughter would have a classroom buddy in every class that would take notes for her, read assignments to her, and help her with tests. They wanted the school to assign one of their daughter's classmates to be a one-on-one aide during each class period. This is something some teachers had allowed volunteer students to do for the girl in the past, but the parents wanted to make it a legally binding requirement. When the administrators pointed out that they couldn't force other students to become a one-on-one aide for their daughter, the parents didn't understand. Because the other students don't work for the school, that's why. They're there to learn. 2. If they want to be nice and help their classmate, that's one thing. But forcing them to do that? No. The parents turned to their lawyer, but he just shook his head no at them, and they moved on to the next issue. 4. Years ago I was working as a lifeguard at a water park and a toddler came shooting out of one of the slides into 4 feet of water and immediately started drowning. I don't know why parents send non-swimming kids down a water slide without inquiring about the pool depth at the bottom. But it happens. I rescue the kiddo and I'm trying to calm her down when dad shows up. I explain to dad that most of our slides come down into 4 feet or so of water, so he needs to go first and catch her at the bottom. He grabs the kid out of my arms and storms off. 15 minutes later I'm supervising another slide and the same kid comes splashing down and again starts drowning immediately. Again, I'm trying to comfort this panicked toddler when dad shows up. I again request that he catch his kid at the bottom of the slide and he says, "That's what you're here for. I'm not doing your job for you." I'm astounded, but I calmly explain that I'm there in case of emergencies and accidental drownings. But I don't stand in the water, and even if I did I have no way of knowing when his child is coming down. He says he can do as he likes with his effing child and after what he paid to get into the park we can keep pulling her out. Meanwhile, the kid is still bawling and coughing. I explain that it's incredibly dangerous for her to inhale water and could cause complications later on, and I point out how traumatizing this obviously is for her. He grabs her and starts back up the stairs to the slides, and the child at this point is screaming in terror because she is obviously afraid to go down any more slides. I called management to inform them of the situation and he was kicked out by security, but not before sending her down one final slide to be pulled out yet again by another lifeguard. Bonus: later in the staff room I discovered that 2 or 3 other lifeguards had also rescued this kid and been told off by dad prior to my interactions with them. 5. I'm 72 and there are scars across my back. I've been asked if I got into a knife fight. According to my mother, when I was a baby in the crib my father came in drunk and got mad that I was crying and took a belt to my back. When he sobered up he swore to never touch me again. 6. After nearly 40 years at working public jobs, with 15 years in law enforcement agency, I have seen too many horrific parents. I've seen parents that allow their children to get hurt in stores due to their indifference. Parents who have tortured their children until they were hours from death. Parents who refuse to care for their child's disabilities, and steal their disability payments. But I will never forget my 6th grade teacher slapping her son, my classmate, in the face. I can still hear the crack of her hand against his face. My thought was, if she hit him, her own child, would she hit me? I hated her for that, and I hated that for him.